the Competitive Edge Charter Academy meeting to order and ask everyone to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Again,
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Note the presence of all board members and ask for a motion to adopt the agenda. Or oh, excuse me, I forgot.
Sorry.
Member Bannister is not present, or other board members are present. And if anybody has any questions or changes on the agenda, if not, I'd ask for a motion to approve.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? I have no request to speak. So we'll move on to the advisory committee report. Mr. Gregory.
Good evening. Welcome to summer, I guess, right? Our last meeting was the 31st of May, so probably the last of the year for at least the advisory council, because next year we will set up, and that was the first thing we talked about was setting up a leadership committee and parent advisory council members for next year. I believe leadership has been set for the 22-23 school year. A survey was sent out to anyone that's currently on the advisory council now if they're willing to, they're wanting to come back. Likewise, we open it up to all the other parents coming into the school year. So we'll see how that changes, what that changes for next year. And once we got into it, we started talking about our LCAP, what we discussed the needed funds that we're going to use and what we currently allocated. Likewise, we explored like additional opportunities in areas that we could work on, items that we thought might be a little better than what we had in the past. And I think this is my second LCAP, so I had a better idea of what the words even meant. So that was good. They set up a calendar meeting. I was just talking to Mr. Mead about that right now for June 7th. That, you know, since it's coming past, just trying to get a master calendar for the school with, you know, not only leadership panel, the advisory council, PTO, our foundation, student leaders, to really kind of iron out next year and have a lot of things set in stone or penciled in so we can get a really good idea of our dates. So we're prepared for when our meetings are. We know when to fit it in. We don't have a PTO event at the same time student leaders trying to do an event, just trying to really get it all together with all the parties in there. So that's going to be a huge benefit for everyone at the site. Discuss summer work, what was going out to all our students. Of course, PRP students were getting learning matrix per their grade. And the learning matrix were kind of covering opportunities to learn, but also IB profile attributes and learning concepts. And when we talk about, you know, the IB learning attributes and concepts, we gave them learning examples like how to ask, during the summer, how to ask to do additional work around the house to, step up to be responsible for what you're trying to do. And, it changed per grade. So first grade was a little less on the examples than maybe the fifth grade. The NYP students are getting a combined matrix of opportunities. It's kind of, middle school students and trying to do summer work is going to be interesting. We just decided, PYP is probably a little easier, but we are getting them a matrix out there to hope that they get a couple things done with that as well. We discussed the beginning of Summer Jumpstart, starting, I guess, Monday, with over 150 students in each session, 150 plus. And then finally, we got all our rooms reassigned and set up for TK, to get our TK in the kinder building, mainly for restrooms and all that kind of stuff to shuffle. So on that, that was most of it. And then we hope that everyone signs up for next year to continue on the advisory council. That's how it was all flows. So.
Did you volunteer yet?
I know.
Did you answer yes to your own survey?
I don't know. Did you get the survey results? You made it anonymous, so you can say yes, I wanted to come back or not. It didn't have to put us on the spot. I didn't say I would come back. We'll see what happens on the board member from there. So we'll see what we got. So.
Thank you. All right, our next item on the agenda is the public hearing for the LCAP. Did you have anything to say before Mr. Mead starts? Okay.
Good evening, President Ingram, members of the board, members of cabinet. Thank you for allowing me to be here tonight and talk about our LCAP this year. And just jumping in, just a little bit of background, like Mr. Gregory talked about it. I love the description down here about the LCAP really being the story of your school and you know, how you take those local and state priorities and see them through the lens of your own school and direct funding towards those goals and those purposes. So as we dive into those, started with just an overview for our parents, budget overview. And if you see, Lindsay, just go a little bit more there. Nope. Thanks. Next one. Nope. So a big piece of the pie here, but the little sliver that we're talking about right now is that local control funding formula concentration grant, the yellow slice there. And so we start with our successes, and this year it was a tough year. Some of our data is a little bit dated at this point, thanks to the pandemic and things like that. But we had some great successes that we can really hang our hat on in a year that was tough for teachers, students, families alike. Remain that above state average for ELA and math. Our CAS, our suspension rates are below the state average. Chronic absenteeism below the state average, although I think I shared before. Over 400 independent studies this school year alone. And so I was so impressed with our students and our families for really hanging on and get through this school year. But chronic absenteeism below the state average. Above average, we feel like we really have strengths in the area of communicating with our families, our IB coursework, and our extracurricular activities that we're able to offer this school year and beyond. And then our staff education when it comes to IB. So areas of need, you're your own worst critic. And for us, we saw a decline in our last SBAC scores for our low socioeconomic students. And so that's an area of need for us. Professional development, we really want to have consistent professional development. It's been great the last couple of years. They have so many opportunities. We want to plan and budget for that going forward so we can remain consistent with those PD offerings. Really want to reinforce that self-help skill, growth mindset, social emotional help. Want to make sure that we have updated resources for our teachers, an easy place to go to get support in areas where you feel you need to grow. We want to be learners on our campus, not just students, but staff as well. And then one of the, we were lucky to have our MYP and PYP evaluations. And one thing that came back was needing to focus more on that international approach in our learning and our teaching. And so we wanted to include that as well. So as far as our LCAP highlights, we're looking to increase student achievement, want to meet those holistic needs of our students, increase the number of students, college ready, and increase the number of English learners who make progress towards proficiency. It was interesting this year on our LPAC results, seeing that in the area of writing, we had great growth. In the area of oral skills, we had decline, which is interesting for us, and something that we need to kind of dive into going forward. Engaging our educational partners, we have a great example here tonight. Mr. Gregory is part of our Parent Community Advisory Committee. We have our Psych Council as well. We have our English Language Committee, our teachers, our staff. We're great. I don't know if it's a positive or negative for our families, but we love sending surveys and kind of getting a dipstick of where we are. That led us to our goals, who are not vastly different from the past. Goal number one, want to increase the relevance and rigor and consistency of the curriculum and instruction of the Common Core state standards. Areas that we really focus in on is our reading specialist. And Ms. Tucci isn't just an intervention support. She also does our progress monitoring for our teachers, and she does professional development in the area of building reading skills for our staff. And so she does not just work with our intervention students, but has a positive effect on the entire campus. Our librarian, Angie Gray, in the world of International Baccalaureate, your librarian is really supposed to be the heartbeat of your school. And so our library is never empty. She's always leading through literature and really looking at our IB learner profiles through literature and pushing into classrooms, supporting students. And then in the area for our middle schoolers, really helping with research and writing. And she goes into classrooms to really talk about good sources, to really talk about backing up your beliefs and what you've learned. And then professional development as well. We're on that 5-year cycle that I've talked about before, where within 5 years, which is when our evaluation comes back around, we want each one of our teachers to have had 3 different types of training: individual, a grade level, and a whole school training. And so that's our goal going forward. I was in goal 1. In goal number 2, we wanted to close the identified achievement gap by providing targeted additional support to meet the needs of students who are not meeting standards in the core instructional program. And this is that social and emotional area. This is our counselor, Ms. Brasher, who's just done a fantastic job. She has an intern right now that's helping her, and they are pushing in the classrooms with social and emotional learning lessons during summer school. She also just recently wrote a grant through the San Bernardino County Office of Ed, working through Berkeley, that's going to allow her to bring on some extra services over the next 2 school years. And that's, we all know that's the area that the academics won't come without that social emotional growth. And so that's our goal number 2. Goal number 3, implement measures to foster positive school environments and support students. That's our IB program. It's about an $18,000 a year program. And so $5,000 of goal number 3 is $5,000 going towards that cost to be part of IB. And you guys know that you know, not only the principal of the school, but have soon to be 3 kids in the school, because I believe in the program and the holistic approach to students and the big picture idea that students get out of the IB approach to teaching and learning. And then goal number 4, our final goal is to establish family and school partnerships that build solid relationships between school and family. Really hang our hat on our communication, but this year we're really looking towards our student leaders, our teacher on assignment, Christine McLaughlin, and our web leader, Josh Martindale, to really bring people to our campus in a lot of different modes, whether it's learning through math nights or ELA nights, muffins and math, you know, that she puts on in the morning, mornings for our families, literatures and lattes, a lot of really cool things to get our families on campus in fun, engaging ways, but that also help our families help their students at home. And then just those community building events that student leaders can bring to our campus. As far as our goal number 1, the next couple of slides really break down the cost of each one of those areas with our reading specialist, library technician. LPAC support is one thing I did not hit on. So our LPAC supports, Chelsea Lindeman is our K-3 Spanish teacher, and she provides outside of the school day support for our English learners. We don't have a huge English learner population, which for her works out well to provide that support after school. And she brings the students in to work in small groups, and she brings their families in as well. So they know what the LPAC is, they know what it looks like. It's not a scary thing that they all of a sudden have to take in the school year. Then our professional development, in goal 2, you see the breakdown for our counselor. Goal 3, the IB program piece, and then the connection for family and school for LCAP goal number 4. Any questions?
Questions? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think that all of us here are aware of the impact on the pandemic on the mental health of students, and I'm glad to see that you're taking some of that money to leverage it to support that. I hope that we keep that on the forefront. It's really vital. So thank you for that.
I love always hearing about that, your communication with families and bringing them in and keeping them part of the team. I always like that because I think parents need to see and hear all what's going on and be part of it. So I appreciate that very much.
I had a question about the, you said that you had 400 independent studies this year. Do you know your numbers from previous years pre-COVID approximately?
That's a great question. I don't know off the top of my head, nowhere near 400.
Yeah, and most of those I assume were directly COVID related as opposed to students being pulled out for vacation or something.
Yeah, and it was really that kind of the safety piece, you know, our message was, you know, if you're ill, we want to make sure that you're okay. And so a lot of families stayed safe and stayed home. And, you know, through the use of technology with Google Classroom, our teachers were really able to turn around independent studies very quickly. And we even had a lot of teachers. I think Eric Martinez always comes to mind, but he even had kids joining through Google Meets in his class. So a lot of teachers found a lot of different ways to keep kids engaged. But that's still a lot of time out of school. It's not the same. Even if you're looking through a computer screen watching the teacher teach, is not the same as being there.
Sure.
So yeah, that was a surprising number.
Any other comments or questions? We have a public hearing for this portion, so I'll open the public hearing at 6:15. And I have no request to speak, so I'll close the public hearing at 6:15. The next item on the agenda is the approval of the consent calendar. Do I have any comments or questions on that? If not, I would entertain a motion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Mr. Stoney, seconded by Member Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. And any additional administrative comments?
Thank you, Ms. Singer. I just wanted to congratulate Mr. Mead and the whole CECA team for an outstanding 8th grade promotion. I was able to attend the promotion. It was at the White Pack this year. It was a dinner as well as the ceremony, and they really took the time to recognize each individual student. So wonderful event. Thank you, and I was glad to attend.
Member Coe?
Yes, I was not able to attend a different ceremony this year, but I popped in there and it was absolutely, so your parent helper teacher. They must have made it.
I was able to come to one of your open house portions and instead of the regular end of year ceremony, and I like that format, but I'll tell you. Yeah, I thought it was much more personal for the parents, I think, to be in the classroom with their teacher. So, congratulations. Did you have any comments?
No, I appreciate that. Yeah, we took for our kinder to 4th grade, we did more of an open house end of year celebration for families, invited them on campus. And like you said, we kind of felt like the award ceremonies were stacked, and so we wanted to try something different. We're going to try something a little bit different next year as well and recognize students, but at the same time, make sure that that's not the only thing that we spend time with our students and families doing. So.
Right. Great. Okay. If nothing else, I will adjourn the meeting and we will return at 6:30. Mesa Joint Unified School District regular board meeting to order and ask you all to please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Ready? Yeah.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I'll note the presence of all of our board members with the exception of Ms. Bannister. And I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda if there are no changes.
So I'll second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. I have two requests to speak. Katrina Lumley.
Good evening, President Ingram and fellow board members and assistant superintendents and other personnel. I just wanted to update you. We had a school safety meeting put on by the YCJUSD Civil Review Board last week on Tuesday evening. And we had at that meeting, and we held it at Grace Point Church. Our special guest was Sheriff Paul Huckamy from the YCJUSD Police Station. We also had SRO Officer Bobby Jones and Trevor Benson, YCJUSD's emergency manager. We also had Mayor David Avila was there, Councilman Justin Bieber, Councilman Greg Bowe, along with the YCJUSD Fire Department, the Calumet Mesa Fire Department, and the Riverside Sheriff was also there. It was a very informative meeting, and it was reassuring to see how well the police department is working with the city and the school district in preparing for a school emergency. Sheriff Huckamy talked about the need for volunteers, and he also said that they needed volunteers for the emergency response team. I don't know. I know with the COVID, when the COVID virus was going around, they stopped the volunteers from the school district. So I don't know if volunteers are still being permitted within the school district, if that's been started up again or not. But that was something he said that they needed. He also talked about all the programs the police offer for the children and the youth. He also gave a lot of the links to the parents where they could look for all that on the internet. Officer Jones also shared that the district is trying to get a second SRO officer. And so we're hoping for that. That'd be nice to have. Trevor Benson had a lot of good information as well. He talked about the parents preparing ahead of time, with the parents having a place for the children to meet in case of a school emergency. So they could meet ahead of time, having a place they could meet. He also talked about if the kids, they saw something, they needed to say something. He also talked about bullying being more serious than it used to be. The mayor and the councilman brought in good information too about school emergencies, that they also included things like fire, floods, and earthquakes. Not only the school emergency we just saw. That's my beeper. Okay. Anyway, we look forward to meeting with Superintendent Binks for a meeting along with Nick Tollefson to discuss further issues about school safety. Thank you.
Thank you, Katrina. And thank you for the public, just so they know we appreciate the ability to send our SRO to your meeting. Unfortunately, that was a week of all of our graduations and promotions, and our administrative staff was booked for coming to that meeting. But we're glad our SROs and those guys could come.
Right.
And we are in the forefront of our safety plans anyway.
Right. We understood she couldn't be there.
Yeah.
So like I said, we look forward to having a meeting with her and Nick and talking about it more.
Great.
The parents also had really good, they had good suggestions too.
Good. We'll
Like
get together with you.
yours.
for
Yeah,
that.
that'd be
Yeah.
great.
Thank you. Lauren Wiley.
Hello and good evening, everyone. My name is Lauren Wiley. I'm a doctor of and licensed in marriage and family therapy. I'm a credentialed school counselor. I have been employed as a YCJUSD behavioral health counselor for the past 4 years. It has been an honor and a privilege to serve here, where I've worked at every one of our school sites, with every level of staff personnel, and with the most severe problems our students have faced. Tonight, I'm inspired to share my gratitude for the support you've given me, students. So I have 3 thank you notes from me to you. 1, thank you for your bravery in employing counselors, school psychologists, behavioral aides, and behavioral health counselors to support our hardworking teachers in educating our students in essential social, emotional, behavioral topics and opening access to getting them care during this nationwide mental health crisis. I've seen the data and extensive literature that your bravery to employ us has not only positively impacted our students' health and well-being, but it has also improved their attendance, safety, academic achievement, and behavior, setting them up to be healthier, more productive, and resilient adults. Number 2, thank you for bravely educating our students on the Healthy Youth Act and other topics that they would likely otherwise be Googling or finding endless harmful misinformation on the internet, further extending their pain and increasing dangerous, unsafe choices. As we know, our students often don't speak with adults on the topics we most wish they would. While any material isn't perfect, what we have here at our disposal has been chosen due to being meticulously researched by the brightest professionals the United States has to offer and taught by our rigorously trained local educators. Although fear tells us that talking about it will make the problems worse, our training reminds us that educating them on these topics actually significantly decreases the problems. Number 3, lastly, I'll leave you with my final thank you, which happens to be the thank you that our students so bravely say to us as counselors. Thank you for listening to me, and thank you for taking me seriously. Have a good evening.
Thank you, Laura. Okay. We'll move on to item 3.01, an amendment to the superintendent's contract. Do I have any questions, comments? If not, I will entertain a motion.
I'll move approval.
Second.
Motion to approve, moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the next one is the superintendent on educational services, assistant superintendent amended employment contract. Do I have a motion or comments on that?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. 3.03 is a assistant superintendent human resources contract amendment.
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Number 3.04 is the assistant superintendent business services contract amendment.
Move approval. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is from Educational Services. It's our public hearing on the LCAP plan. And
I have the first part and then Dr. Raymond brings up the finale. There will be a quiz over the 200-page document and the board agenda. Just warning everybody now. In all seriousness, in the board agenda, there are different attachments in there, the plan itself, and then also the mid-year review, just differentiating each action, and then the budget piece with each action as well, just to differentiate. Also at the end too, there is a list of acronyms because there are several throughout the document. So I put that in there just as a reference and a resource. So for the 22-23 LCAP template, this is part of the 3-year plan. This is year 2 already within the 3-year document. And what it includes also is a budget overview for parents. It also includes the local control accountability plan supplement that we had to do as an additional portion this year that was presented back earlier this school year. And then also our action tables, including the budget items. So for the 22-23 school year, here's the budget overview that includes all various state and federal funds that our school district receives, including our local control funding formula for our supplemental concentration grant funding as well. In reflections for this past year for 21-22, what we saw with our data were these various pieces. We saw an increase with our AP exam participation, also with our A to G completion. And part of these also, I have to give credit to our educational services team working with the schools and also looking at our school data in order to make sure that we not only are collecting data in the right way, especially with our school sites, but also district-wide. So I really appreciate educational services working on this piece. Part of it too with this is we also decreased our high school dropout rate and also decreased in suspension and expulsion rates. Previous years, we had a little over 3%, 3.4% in our suspension rate overall as a district. And our last year's data, and I know COVID was part of that, but we're going to take growth where we can get it. It was 0.2% overall, and then also a 0% expulsion rate. Part of this too, with increasing our preparedness on the college career readiness indicator, was once again looking at the data to ensure our course sequencing was correct, but also to make sure that we had the right information within our student information systems as well when we're aligning courses, but then also when we're reporting out to state and federal entities. And also I think the last piece was we have seen a huge increase in our parent and community participation. And I know a part of that is due to our educational services team reaching out to various parent groups and educational partners within our community, and also our bilingual liaison and parent engagement specialists too. Some identified need when looking at our data in this past year, one big piece was math. The last piece of CASP data indicated we were at 32% of students who met or exceeded standard with that. So part of our goals for this year and part of the pieces that we did implement in a successful way, which we all have to look at the context of coming back from a pandemic, is we had a full implementation of a new district-wide assessment platform with Illuminate. And then we also implemented K-12 math common formative assessments, which was amazing, I think, for our teachers and our administrators to do. And our team was really focusing on the process and protocol of this, but even looking at some of the math common formative assessment data at the end of this year, we're already showing growth with our students. Our focus has really been on that math piece, and our teacher teams have met all throughout the year talking about various interventions, especially with our special education students, as well as our general education students, ensuring that we have inclusion also, because we want to make sure that we're having all of our students' needs met in a very inclusive way, including our English learners. Another piece of this is also Dr. Brown did a big piece with our federal program monitoring audit this year. And that's a huge, huge process. And she did a great job with that and really spearheaded what we were looking at with the feedback that we received from our auditors. Part of that is we've done a whole rehaul of our secondary English language development curriculum, and also looking at how we place students in classes and looking at what that looks like at secondary sites. And so we're looking forward to this next year and the progress that we're going to see in that. And then one additional piece is we'll be adding Spanish at our middle schools next year to offer more access for our students to complete A to G completion as well. With our LCAP highlights, in looking at our various goals and also state priorities, our focus has been on the social emotional support for students through our counselors, not only with counseling support, but also our school counselors and behavioral health counselors working together with curriculum at our school sites. And they have done an amazing job with the implementation with students and dealing with different emotions that they're having, but also helping our teachers deal with different student behaviors coming back. Also, part of this was an increase in our A to G completion and also the college career readiness indicators. Those are big pieces regarding goals 2, 3, and 5, because we talk a lot about helping close that achievement gap, but also having our students be college and career ready, as well as providing that social emotional wellness for our students. And then with goal 6, we want to make a positive impact with our students in creating a positive school culture, but also engaging our community and providing more ways to become engaged. And what that looks like too is providing more activities and events next year on our school sites in various ways, because we know schools all have different identities, and we want our schools to be able to provide those events for our parents. Engaging educational partners, a big piece that I really want to highlight with this section is this is how we determine how we move forward with our district goals. The state is very specific on the template with LCAP this year, is that this is how we determine what we do. We don't just come up with it. And I really want to thank all of our different partner groups, because all throughout the year, we received feedback from all of these various groups, including various parent groups, our counselors, psychologists, our K-12 teacher teams all throughout the year, also with our self-administrator within our area, and then also with our union representatives from Classified, but also our teachers union. And we really appreciate all of the feedback that they gave us on the progress monitoring. So what we did is, after getting all of this feedback, we go through and identify common themes of the feedback that we received. And these were what we got. So part of it was increasing student enrichment opportunities after school. Part of this we'll see next year with our expanded learning opportunity program. And part of that, I'll bring a plan at our next board meeting to talk more about what that looks like. And that really coincides with the universal pre-K plan, with providing opportunities for students after school, and providing a 9-hour day if they want to. It's not mandatory, but providing after school opportunities such as academic supports, but also enrichment. So those are the pieces that we're really excited about, and we're partnering with the city of Yucaipa on that piece as well. Also increasing parent engagement opportunities. We put increased actions in LCAP for our schools to have the opportunity to hold different events. The feedback we received from our educational partners was we want to be more involved on sites at different events such as art nights. We want to do science nights, whatever that might look like and what makes sense to the site. Also increasing counseling support. A big piece we saw this year was the support of our counselors and the support they provided for our teachers with training, but also with our students. It was tremendous, and I would say Dr. Wiley was very well spoken and very well said, because the data does show that all of the work our counselors did this year, it was positive, and it brought a great impact for our students. And then also increasing academic intervention. This past year, and we'll continue forward in math intervention K-12. This is something that we haven't had in the past, and we're putting a lot of effort and focus into this, not just with curriculum, but we're also starting with instructional strategies next year also. And increasing STEAM in elementary schools. We do have STEAM, but we do want to take it to the next level next year, along with our next generation science standards adoption, and also working with our math intervention. We really want our math and science to work together and incorporate those concepts into our STEAM in elementary schools. So we're really excited to see that work happen. So how our LCAP is different this year. In goal 1, we're continuing our specific actions. We did add additional independent study teachers this past year, and this has proven successful also with increasing our graduation rate. Overall, we had a decrease in the graduation rate. Yucaipa High School went up 1% to 97%. We did see a drop at our alternative education schools in the past year, about 15 to 17% at Oakview and also Green Valley. The independent study program provided another opportunity for our students, and we saw that as an influence. Another piece is also the additional technology pieces. We were able to make sure that we have that replacement technology plan, as well as incorporating additional instructional technology in the classroom. For goal 2 focuses on really providing the additional supports that students might need in order to meet grade level standards. So part of this, when we're looking at it, is the intervention materials along with technology, because coming back, we also understand that we need that in-class instruction, and really technology is looked at an enhancement. It's looked at an additional piece, because we know that in-person instruction is so important. With goals 3 and 4, they focus on the career technical education pathway completion, not only increasing enrollment in our pathways, but also completing capstone courses. So what that means is you need to take specific courses in order to complete that pathway. So how we're looking at that is our increase in students prepared went up to 55% this last year. And that was because we did a course correction with our course sequencing with those courses specifically. And also we're looking at expanding different branches at the high school. I know our engineering team talked about incorporating cybersecurity as well. And then we're also strengthening our CTE pathways at our middle schools and then also our alternative education sites. So we're excited for that. Goal 5 has been a main focus for us based on the feedback from our educational partner groups. So what we did with this is we added additional counselors into the LCAP for this year. Part of that is the additional funding that we received and where our elementary schools will be getting additional counseling support along with Parkview Middle School. And we also looked at putting also elementary deans into our schools as well, because what we've seen with our high school dean and our middle school dean has been an increase in attendance and also a decrease in discipline. Our deans have done an amazing job with our positive behavioral intervention supports, but also reaching out and building connections with families to really understand the different supports that they may need. And along with counseling, we're going to continue our work with Hatchie next year. This past year, our counselors and administrators worked together to create Tier 1 intervention and supports, and now they'll be moving on to Tier 2. And I'm really proud of them because we know how hard it is to get away from a site. And our principals made it a priority to work with our counseling teams. So I really give them a lot of credit because I do remember it's hard to leave your site.
Dr. Anderson, may I ask just real quickly, the elementary deans, is that in lieu of elementary assistant principals?
We looked at that as yes. So part of it is we chose dean because we know that our elementaries need additional administrative support. However, we wanted to focus it also on the attendance piece, building positive culture, and also that positive behavioral intervention support.
Okay.
You're welcome. So you would remove the APs? There are no assistant principals at elementary schools at this time.
We don't do the share.
No, and that was one part of the feedback that we received was to please not share because it was so hard on assistant principals to build rapport and also connection and to have that continuity of work and instructional support at sites. Also with goal 6, that piece is establishing the family and school partnerships between schools. I'd like to give Ms. Velasco a lot of credit, even though she resigned recently due to being a mama, which we completely understand and support. She had done a great job and will continue to fill her position with different classes, parenting classes offered. And we're also going to expand that next year based on the feedback from our parents that they would like those types of courses offered at their school sites. So we're going to work hard on trying to provide that next year. Thank you, Lance. Are there any questions?
I have one that's not a real big one if you don't know the answer.
You're giving me the pop quiz. Okay.
Yeah. On the AP tests, as I recall, we were able to use funding this year to pay for the tests for the kids. So was the number a lot higher? I saw a number in here, but I didn't know how it related to the past.
Yes, our AP participation went up 29%.
Okay, great. And do we have any idea how our pass rate is? I mean, I know,
not yet.
Okay, I know a lot of kids won't take the test if they're concerned they might not pass because it was costing quite a bit of money, as I recall, for each test.
Correct, and that is an action within our LCAP to continue for this next year.
Good.
Interesting feedback I received when I was at Yucaipa High School was that some of the teachers said that some of the students didn't take it as seriously when they broadcasted that they were going to pay. So we're going to work together on maybe how we communicate that to students, but we are providing that support.
Okay. Go ahead.
Can you, the foreign language at middle schools, that I just love that. So they're going to offer that in 8th grade, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And then that helps them, then when they get to high school, then they have that one class out of the way already, and they can go on to Spanish 2 or whatever. Is that how that works?
So yes, I just want to clarify that though. A course has to be taken in high school to count toward the graduation high school requirement though. So what that means is they'll still have to take their 2 years or whatever their plan is to meet that graduation requirement. An example would be with math. If a student takes math 1 in 8th grade, when they go to high school, they're still going to have to take 3 years of math to meet that requirement. So what this does is it offers of that access for our students to complete the A to G requirement.
Do we offer the ability to challenge classes? Like when I was in college, if you wanted to challenge a course, you could get the grade and the credit for it by taking some kind of an, end of year type exam.
I know in the
Do
past
something like that?
with CECA, we were doing pieces like that with the Spanish course. However, we're going to just align it where if they take the Spanish course, it'll be based on the grade to where they don't have to take an end of course exam for that.
So they would get credit for a year without taking the class again or not? That's what.
So just to clarify, you have to take a course in high school to count toward high school requirements.
So there's no
you
way
can't
you
take
can
it in
take
middle school.
a challenge. There's no way a student could challenge the course in high school and get high school credit.
Well, in high school, it's a little bit different. I'll use math as an example. If the student shows proficiency in a higher math, you could put a 9th grade student in math 2, and University of California will recognize, okay, they passed math 1 because they were able to complete that higher coursework.
But they
So you don't
get the
necessarily-
credit for the number of years of required math. And so,
So that's the same with the Spanish or foreign.
Correct.
Same.
Okay, yes.
any other questions? If not, I will open the public hearing on the local control and accountability plan at 6:55. And there's no speakers, so I will close the hearing at 6:55. The next item is on the proposed budget.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram, Board of Education. Thank you this evening for allowing me to speak on the proposed budget. There's some caveats I want to share when we get to it about our 22-23 budget. We can advance. So every time I come to the budget presentation, I talk about the budget cycle. It's a continuous cycle. So you can see we're at the hearing. That's the up top left. And then you can see we have to adopt our budget this month. And so that'll come to the board next meeting. California doesn't actually adopt its budget until after we adopt ours. And our budget is based on the California budget. So within 45 days of us passing the budget, I will come back to you with more accurate numbers. There's things I'll talk about a little bit, but it happens every year that we have to base our budget on assumptions that aren't finalized yet. So that's the hearing tonight. The next meeting, I'll bring the actual for approval. So you might have heard, let me back up. The California state budget is generally based on 3 sets of taxes: the corporate tax, the income tax, and the sales tax. In other states, the state budget is based primarily on property tax. That's not the case in California. So in California, since it's based on corporate income and sales tax, it's a little more volatile. So we had in January, the governor released his budget, and in May, he did a May revise. And what this slide shows is that in January, there were projections for personal income tax for the state. And you can see these are in millions, but you can see the blue boxes are what the prediction was back in January. Come the May revise, you can see what the projections are now. And so a significant increase to the state budget, which will be an increase to our budget. But you can see the increases for this current year. So the 21-22 tax increase is this year, and you can see next year it kind of levels off, but we'll talk a little bit about that. So the first slide is personal income tax. The second slide, or not the second slide, but sales and use tax. You can see the blue was projected in January. If you look over 3 years, in May, you can see the significant increase in sales and use tax. And then the last one, remember I said the big three taxes the state budget's based on. The third is the corporate taxes. You can see what it was in January and then what the projections are for this year when the taxes come due. So what does that mean for California schools? If you go to the next slide, because based on Proposition 98 that was passed by the voters, K-14. So when they say K-14, they mean community colleges also. But school districts as well as community colleges are guaranteed 40% of the state budget. So all the revenue that comes in, schools get 40%. And you can see that in the last, this is from 1988, but you can see where we're projected for 21, 22, and 22, 23. Just focus on that current year. In our current year, 21, 22, you can see the large jump, and that was based on the May revise. That jump wasn't as big in January. So just to say, since January to May, there's been a significant increase in dollars. And the legislature and the governor are still working through what they're going to do with that 40% for the school districts. And so that's why I'll talk a little bit about assumptions. There is more money coming in. The caveat is, if you go to the next slide, as we all feel, is inflation. And so we are balancing increased revenues in the school districts with increased inflation. And obviously, that's the cost of goods and services. You see that at the gas pump, and you see it in many other places. So as we go to do projects around the district, as we buy textbooks, as we buy other things, the cost of those materials is going significantly up as we receive more money. So just a cautionary tale. Wouldn't be a chief business official if I send out a cautionary tale or two. So on the next slide, I talk about what are the unknown assumptions. So remember, we're required to pass our budget before the state does. They have not decided on calculations for average daily attendance. And so we are funded on next year. We're funded typically on how many students came to school every day this year. And so we're always funded on prior years. So this year's attendance determines next year's money. Across the state, there was a dip in attendance this year. You heard it from Mr. Mead on the NSA contracts. But across the state, there was a 10% reduction on the number of students coming to school every day. And so with some of that extra money, they're trying to figure out how to support school districts not to have a huge decline in ADA, a huge decline in funding for next year when there's extra dollars. So the state's still undecided on what that might look like. The cost of living adjustment was proposed in the May revise with additional dollars coming into the state. We're still waiting on a finalized cost of living adjustment. They're also talking about some of that extra money to add not only a cost of living adjustment, we get paid per student when they're in school. And so there's a typical COLA, but they're also talking about increasing the number of dollars per student, not just COLA. So almost a double COLA. And then there's also some talk of some additional one-time funding. So I'm sorry. Yes, please.
Interrupt. The cost of living adjustment is kind of a misnomer because it sounds like it's to give more money for folks because living expenses are going up. But that's not really what it is, if I understand it correctly. It's like all of our services, correct?
Right. So I refer to it as a cost of doing business adjustment.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. So not just salaries and benefits, but the cost of materials, everything.
Electricity, everything, all of our services.
Yeah. So we receive that cost of living adjustment, cost of doing business adjustment, and we have to consider all of our services. Thank you. And we know we are going to receive additional one-time funding. We just don't know exactly how it's going to come in. Is it going to come in with restrictions? Is it going to come in with just certain programs? Is it going to come to the district as general fund dollars that the board can choose what to do with it? So we know there will be additional money. But until the governor passes the budget, or the legislature and the governor get together, and by July 1 pass the budget, those are some of the unknown assumptions. And we use the assumptions we have now to base and do our Cal-Mesa Joint Unified School District budget. So what do those changes mean for us? In January, the governor's revised, so let me start with the first bullet. This year, we were down 178 ADA. So what is ADA? A student is enrollment And ADA is how many times if they come to school every day. So on average, we had 178 less students in school per day across the year.
What's an ADA word?
It depends on the grade level. So a high school ADA is around 11,000. You get paid more for ADA, and a lower grade might be 9,000. So let's think 10,000 just as an average. But if we're down 178 students, there's a cliff of decrease in funding where our costs are rising. And so that's why they're still working out how are we going to adjust for that ADA cliff. In January, the COLA, which you mentioned, Mr. Snelling, was 5.33, and May revised it was 6.56. They do give us estimates for the next 2 years also, so you can see a difference between January and May. And when they do finalize their budget by July 1, we'll see what the real COLA is for next year. I did mention that there's going to be an additional investment in LCFF. That's our funding formula of $2.1 billion across the state. And that's where on the previous side, it said additional one-time additional funding's coming in. We just don't know what it looks like. And then also a portion of our money does go to our retirement system, our health services for our certificated staff, teachers, principals, CalPERS, our classified staff. And you can see for every dollar how much money goes into the retirement system. So those are the assumptions, the best assumptions we have at the time, and that's what we use to build the budget. So this is my only big chart. We have to do a 3-year budget. The county requires us to look at not only next year, but the following 2 years. You can see where our ADA levels are and our estimates for ADA for the next 3 years, still showing declining enrollment. Our projected COLA was off the last slide. So you can see our beginning and ending fund balances across the board. So if you look at the first blue line, we have to maintain a 3% reserve. And if we can maintain the 3% savings account and pay all our bills for the next 3 years, then we have a positive budget. And so we're not asking you to vote on that this evening, but we do show a positive budget for this year in about 3 years. I'll talk a little bit about committed funds that we'll ask you to commit for this evening. We have some assigned dollars. Assigned dollars is our savings account. So you can see on the 3rd year, we do have $13 million in our savings account. It says assigned, but that can be used for many things. Committed is something that the Board of Education takes out of the general fund through a resolution. Assigned is our savings account. And then you can see our projected balance. And so we will meet 3% minimum reserve in the 3 years out.
Dr. Feeman, why is the assigned amount so significantly different between this year and next year and the following year?
There's a couple things. The COLA will go up every year. Also, Dr. Anderson presented on the local control and accountability plan, and that's based, the money we receive, our supplemental concentration grant dollars, is based on the number of students who are low income, foster youth, or English learners. This year, we saw a significant increase in those numbers, significant increase. That money is based on a 3-year average. So if we were at 55%, 55%, and this year we went to 61%, as that money moves forward and that 60 becomes the norm, then we see an increase in dollars with our supplemental concentration grant. Our supplemental concentration grant is part of the general fund. And so it's the COLA as well as that. And then the third part of that is we have transitional kindergarten. And the way the state works now, we only receive ADA for students who have a certain birth date during the window. So as we go forward in 23, 24, and 24, 25, that window expands. We'll be able to collect more of the ADA. So, but you'll see the ADA decrease. The increase is the COLA and also supplemental concentration grant dollars. And like I said, this is what I'll bring back within 45 days and bring to the board on our new projected revenue. And we think this is where it'll start and possibly go up again. So if you look at that committed line on the last slide, we did have about $3.6 million left this year. that we did not spend. So why did we not spend those dollars? One is we had open positions. And so the labor market right now is difficult to fill positions, as well as some of our federal COVID relief dollars paid for things that we have projected to use general fund dollars. And so the $3.6 million, we're going to ask the board in a few moments here to pass a resolution. We'd like to commit those dollars to 4 different areas. One is safety, safety in general, and working with our partners and continuing to identify areas where we can improve on safety and put dollars for safety. Textbooks, we did have a textbook adoption this year, science textbook adoption, and I know Dr. Anderson will lead her team on the next cycle of adopted materials. Classroom modernization, our classrooms are getting older, and then technology and infrastructure. And so the later report item will ask the board to commit some funds to those projects. CECA, we just share a little bit about the CECA budget. CECA, Competitive Edge Charter Academy, has its own fund, its own piece of, so it's separate from our general fund. And so I just am beginning revenues, contributions, expenditures, and an ending fund balance. And this also, as the legislature and government work together on the revenue, this will also change for CECA. So I'll report that back to you also. But CECA is, we'll start with, has $700,000 beginning fund balance of life with that. There's no requirement for a 3% reserve like there is for our school district for CECA. And then next steps, bring the budget to the board meeting on June 21st, our proposed budget. By June 30th, California has to approve their budget, and then we have a 45-day window to bring back any differences in revenues or expenditures back to the board. And so we'll do that. Any questions?
Going back to the board commitments, Dr. Riemann, the 1.5 million in safety money. I know that certainly the Uvalde tragedy is fresh in our minds still, and I know that this board is concerned about that and wants to make sure that we're prepared. I know that we're not identifying specifically what is in this safety budget. Can you just talk a little bit about a process that we might go through to determine how to spend those safety monies in a meaningful and thoughtful way?
Sure. A couple things. So we have budgeted safety dollars in the past, general fund dollars, not committed dollars. So we are working with our law enforcement partners to assess our schools like we have done in the past. So based on those recommendations, there'll be things that come out and really look at how to improve the safety of our campuses. We also have training. A speaker mentioned the CERT training. So we're providing CERT training to not only our employees, but the community, and then continue doing things that we've done for safety in our campuses. You know, the things we've done, peepholes and lock blocks, gates, fencing, those continuous projects. So we did have some extra money, and we wanted to dedicate a large sum to those projects as we do work with our partners that identified needs across our district.
So we have law enforcement going into our schools and then informing us about things we might be able to do to tighten up our security and better support our kids.
Absolutely. After the tragedy that happened, I think we all had ideas about how to improve our schools. Myself as a parent, having a student in our school district, I have ideas also, but and we take those ideas and we listen, but really to work with our law enforcement partners who are dealing with this and train on this and assess our schools. Yes, we're working with law enforcement.
Just to follow up with that, all of these items were items that for the public to know there was a whole list of things that the board reviewed at a previous meeting and came up with these as our top priorities of things that we thought there should be funds committed for. So.
Questions?
Thank you. We need to conduct a public hearing regarding the proposed 22-23 budget, and we have no speakers listed, so I'll open the hearing at 7:15. and close the hearing at 7:15. All right, the next item is a public hearing regarding the Education Protection Act spending plan.
Thank you, Ms. Ingram. The Education Protection Act is so Prop 30 was passed several years ago when school districts were losing funding, and it was passed by the voters. What came out of that was that the money had to be used for teachers. It could not be used for administrative staff. And so this is a report that we bring to you annually showing that the money is being used for teachers in the classroom.
Thank you. Were there any questions on this report?
No.
If not, I need to conduct a public hearing on the EPA spending plan. Do you have any requests to speak? No? So I will open the hearing at 7:16 and close the hearing at 7:16. Thank you. The next item is a public hearing regarding the minimum recommended reserve for economic uncertainties.
So we're required, if we have over the 3% reserve, that we need it. And so this, the attachment lists what we need those reserves for. And obviously the commitments we talked about tonight are in there, as well as the $6.3 million that were committed last year to projects and what's remaining there. So this just allows us to use reserves for committed funds.
Any comments or questions? If not, I'll open the public hearing at 7:17 and close the public hearing at 7:17. Next item on the agenda is the resolution for establishing that committed fund balance in the general fund. Any other questions or comments? Dr. Beeman's talked about it. Do I have a motion to approve the resolution?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Okay. This is the problem with these budget meetings. It's just a ton of these hearings. The next item on the agenda is the CSEA initial proposal on their contract amendments for the collective bargaining. Do you have any comments on that, Mr. Stokes?
Yeah, thank you, President Ingram. On item 310, this is an opportunity for the board to accept, after hearing from the public, the CECA's proposed contract amendments for the next school year. And that same theme carries over to 311, 312, 313, 312, 313 are with our Teachers Association and Educators Association. On 310, we're looking at CSEAs. On 311, we're looking at the board's proposed.
Okay, thank you. Any comments or questions on this item? If not, I'll open the public hearing at 7:17. And there are no speakers, so I'll close the hearing at 7:17. And the next item is 3.11. It's the Board of Education's proposed contract amendments for CSEA. And if there's no comments on that, I will open the public hearing at 7:18 and close the public hearing at 7:18. And item 312 is the public hearing from YCEA's proposed contract amendments. Nothing else to report, right? If there's no board members' comments, I'll open the public hearing at 7:19. Close the public hearing at 7:19. And then finally, 3.13 is the public hearing for the Board of Education's contract amendments to Yucatan-Cal-Mesa Educators Association. And again, I will open the public hearing at 7:20 and close the public hearing at 7:20. The next item on the agenda is Human Resources CSEA chapter unit modification. Do you have any comments on that?
Yes, President Ingram. This item has three pieces to it. One piece is an agreement that the board or the district and the CSEA have made in order to reassign 6 job descriptions for the confidential group of employees to the classified group of employees. So there's an agreement accepting that change in here. There's also, because there are 6 job descriptions effective, there are revisions to those 6 job descriptions by taking out the confidential language for the classified language. And finally, in making such an action like this, we have to complete an action with the Public Employment Relations Board called PERB, and there's a petition in there if the board so chooses to direct the district to sign that forward and that would package up the entire change.
Thank you. So if there's no questions on this, what we need is a motion to approve all of the attachments that are on this item. Is that
Can I ask
correct?
one question?
Sure.
Mr. Scholes, is this because that those positions weren't really confidential positions? Is that the reason for the change? I mean, it was kind of they weren't named properly, the positions, or what's the rationale for changing this?
Right, great question, Mr. Stein. So the definition of confidential has changed over the years.
Okay.
And you know, maybe 20 or so years ago, this was more expansive definition. Now the accepted definition of confidential is employees who directly work with the negotiations process or contribute to it. And since we've agreed to that definition, we've had to make some slight adjustments.
So it's more narrow now than it was.
Narrow.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Questions?
I'll move approval.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. All right, the next item on the agenda is our consent calendar. Are there any items to change, or comments? I would take a motion on the consent calendar.
So moved.
Second. Seconded by Member Miller. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. The next item is transitional kindergarten textbook adoption.
Thank you, President Ingram. I just have comments on it too. I appreciate the efforts from our educational services team. All of our directors were involved in this, even our child welfare and attendance director. And I appreciate the support because it's all encompassing of the work that all of our directors do. And our teacher teams, they jumped right in when we were just notified in springtime that universal transitional kindergarten was happening in the way that it is. And so I appreciate our teachers and administrators and our parent feedback that we've received from the process in this to ensure that we have updated materials, because when we reviewed our transitional kindergarten materials, we realized that we needed to update and offer, I'll say, a more effective curriculum for our transitional kindergartners that wasn't basically a repeat of kindergarten. So we were very thoughtful in this process, but we were also timely. And in the attached document, it not only reviews the process, but then it also takes the next steps on the professional development and supports that we're going to provide for our transitional kindergarten teachers next year.
Thank you. Comments or questions? Just to confirm, these books have been out for the public to review, and there has been public that came in to review them. Is that correct?
Yes, President Ingram.
Thank you. Okay. Do I have a motion to approve? I'm sorry, do you have a motion?
So moved.
Second. Oh, this is information.
Oh, sorry.
My mistake. Sorry about that. Thank you. Okay, we are at the end of our agenda, and I will ask for any administrative comments.
Thank you. Thank you, President Ingram. I just want to thank our business services team, Amber Tavis, our physical coordinators in the audience this evening. And in my time doing the budget, this is the most undecided or unclear the state has been. And so she's had to work through those assumptions, and her and her team have done a wonderful job. And we look forward to providing you a 45-day update after the budget's approved.
Thank you. Questions or comments?
I was just glad to be a part of the high school graduation. I think that was amazing, and the other things that I was able to get to. Glad to see the students. I think I don't know, it's kind of awkward to be up there on stage a little bit and hand them the diplomas, but at the end of it, I was very glad that I was able to do that. So I really appreciate that.
Couple of things. Katrina, thank you for the update on the safety meeting. That was very informative, and I'm glad that you came give us that update on that. So all that happened. And then Lauren, thank you and your fellow counselors for all you've done and that you continue to do. We appreciate you so much. I know it's been really hard. From just all the counselors I know personally, they really take it to heart, and they don't like seeing their kids having issues, problems, and I know with COVID it's been rough. So thank you and all your fellow counselors. We really appreciate it. I did enjoy also the graduations. It's so fun. I wish I could go to all of them, but I have a real job to go to. But I did enjoy that, and I'm so glad you heard that. And thank you for the presentation. It's very informative.
Appreciate it.
I want to thank the principals for all the end of the year activities, and because she's here, Kathy Miller, the tribute to our fallen hero Tyler Davis was outstanding, and I know so appreciated by that family, and it was student driven. It was really it was a wonderful morning. So thank you for helping support that. And to these the review board and Mr. Burton and your group, thank you for keeping school safety up front, because this board views it as very important too. And I appreciated the comments from Miss Lumley, if she's still here. It's hard for me to see back there, but thank you for those comments. We do appreciate that, and we're going to have parents as partners as we move forward and trying to fortify our schools as much as we can, and still keeping them fun for kids to be, and trying to find that balance. So thank you for that. And then Dr. Anderson asked me if I missed facilitating the LCAP, and I said no immediately, but I do know how difficult that is, Jamie, and to bring that group of people together. And it touches every part of our program, and I really appreciated you highlighting that tonight, and allowing the board to understand what it is we have in front of us for 22-23. So thank you for that, and thank you for your budget information.
And I thank you guys. Those presentations I know are not riveting for a lot of people sometimes, but they're very important and informative. And I think it's even more important that we're putting the funds in the right places. And it seems like we're able to evaluate that well now, and I appreciate that. Also was able to attend all of the high school graduations, 4 of them. And each one is unique and rewarding in its own way. And I think the use of the YPAC this year made a huge difference in the adult school in Green Valley's graduation, and the way the feel of the whole graduation was. And anyway, it was a very, very nice end of the year ceremony time. It felt like we were back to normal almost. So thank you, everyone. And we are adjourned. We do have to come back next week, just so everybody knows, for our regular meeting. Thank you.